3.6 million years ago, the largest predatory shark that ever lived went extinct. Megalodon, up to 60 feet long, nearly 100 tons, with the strongest bite force of any animal in the history of the planet. Built to cruise the open ocean and take down prey the size of a modern apex predator in a single strike. Then, at 7:52 a.m. on a Wednesday, a boat captain running a sunrise charter 8 miles off Miami Beach radios the Coast Guard with a sentence that will be replayed on every news channel in the world by noon. "I need you to tell me I'm not seeing what I think I'm seeing." What he's seeing is a dorsal fin the size of a car door attached to something that, when it surfaces fully 20 minutes later in the shipping channel approaching Government Cut, turns out to be 52 feet of the most efficient apex predator the ocean has ever produced. And it's heading toward Biscayne Bay, a body of water with an average depth of 10 feet. The Megalodon doesn't know it's in Miami. It doesn't know what Biscayne Bay is. It knows the water ahead is full of moving things that are warm-blooded, and it is the largest hunting machine that has ever existed, entering the shallowest, most crowded stretch of water it has ever encountered. The shipping channel known as Government Cut is the deepest water access point into the port of Miami, dredged to 50 feet to allow cruise ships and cargo vessels through, the only channel in the area with water deep enough for something the size of a school bus to move through without scraping bottom. It is also, at 7:52 a.m. on a Wednesday in June, occupied by 3 cruise ships preparing for departure, a Coast Guard cutter, and roughly 40 recreational boats. Because Government Cut is also one of the most popular fishing and diving spots in South Florida. The charter captain who first spots the animal, a 28-year veteran of South Florida waters named Danny Reyes, describes what he sees in the same flat, disbelieving tone that the Central Park maintenance worker used 3 weeks earlier. "It's not a whale. I've seen whales. This isn't a whale." The Coast Guard's first response, as with every first response to an impossible report, is to assume misidentification. A large shark, a whale shark, a basking shark, something rare but explainable. That assumption lasts exactly as long as it takes the responding Coast Guard helicopter to get a visual. The pilot's radio call 4 minutes later is the moment the crisis officially begins, confirming visual on the contact. It's a shark. It's a pause that the Coast Guard's own incident log records simply as, "It's bigger than our boat." What makes the Miami scenario fundamentally different from the New York scenario becomes clear within the first 8 minutes, and it's a problem of physics rather than behavior. Biscayne Bay, the body of water that separates downtown Miami from Miami Beach, the water the Spartan general once stood beside, has an average depth of just 6 to 10 feet, with most of it considerably shallower near shore. A 52-foot Megalodon, estimated based on its visible length to weigh somewhere between 50 and 70 tons, requires significant water depth simply to maneuver, to turn, to dive, to generate the swimming motion its body is built for. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the same paleontologist from the Central Park crisis 3 weeks earlier, now on a flight to Miami before her plane has even finished boarding, is reached by phone by Miami-Dade's Office of Emergency Management at 8:04 a.m. Her first question isn't about the animal's behavior. It's about the chart depths. How deep is the water where it's currently located? The answer, 45 to 50 feet in Government Cut. Dr. Vasquez says, "Okay, that's the only place in that entire bay system where an animal that size can actually function normally. The moment it leaves that channel, it's not an apex predator anymore. It's a 70-ton animal that's run aground in slow motion." The evacuation calculus in Miami is the inverse of New York's. In Central Park, the danger was a land predator entering a dense urban environment. The response was to clear people away from a fixed, contained green space. In Miami, the park is the entire waterfront, Biscayne Bay, the causeways, South Beach, the Port of Miami, the Miami River. And it's not a space people can simply walk away from, because for tens of thousands of people on a Wednesday morning, the water is where they already are. 3 cruise ships with a combined 9,000 passengers and crew are mid-departure from the Port of Miami, directly adjacent to Government Cut. Dozens of recreational boats are on the water. The Venetian Causeway, the MacArthur Causeway, and the Rickenbacker Causeway, the same bridges that became choke points during the Spartan invasion, carry an estimated 4 1,000 vehicles per hour at this time on a weekday, many of them crossing directly over water where the animal could pass beneath. The Coast Guard's first order, issued at 8:15 a.m., is the marine equivalent of New York's "Do Not Approach." All vessels in Biscayne Bay and the government cut channel are ordered to proceed immediately and calmly to the nearest dock or marina, engines at minimum wake speed, because, as the Coast Guard's marine biology liaison points out in the first briefing, a 70-ton animal investigating an unfamiliar environment is, like the T-Rex, responding to the most novel stimulus available, and 40 boat engines suddenly gunning to full throttle simultaneously is about the most novel stimulus Biscayne Bay has ever produced. The 3 cruise ships at the port of Miami present the single largest logistical problem of the crisis's first hour, and the decision made about them becomes the most consequential of the entire event. Each ship is over 1,000 feet long, drawing roughly 30 feet of water, deep enough that, in government cut, they are sharing the same water column as the Megalodon, separated by tens of feet rather than the open ocean the animal is built for. The instinct, voiced by more than one official on the 8:30 a.m. conference call, is to get the ships moving out of the channel, away from the animal, as fast as possible. Dr. Vasquez, patched into the call from her still taxiing plane, says the word that stops the conversation. "No," she continues. "You have 3 1,000-foot vessels with propellers the size of cars, about to accelerate through a 50-foot deep channel that a 70-ton animal is currently occupying. If it's anywhere near those props when they spin up, it doesn't matter how big it is. And if it panics and that channel is its only way back to deep water, you've just blocked the exit with 3 cruise ships." The Port of Miami's harbor master on the same call makes the decision. All 3 cruise ships hold position, engines idling, no propeller movement until the channel is confirmed clear. 9,000 passengers remain on 3 ships going nowhere, watching from their balconies as a Coast Guard helicopter circles a patch of water 200 yards away. At 9:03 a.m., the Megalodon moves out of government cut and into Biscayne Bay proper, and the behavior that follows is, according to the marine biologists now assembling at the Coast Guard's Miami command post, the most predictable and most dangerous thing it could possibly do. It doesn't charge. It doesn't attack. It does what every large shark does in unfamiliar water. It follows the deepest available channel, moving along the bottom contour the way a hiker follows Urzatrolls, because deep water is safe water and shallow water is a place sharks generally avoid. The problem is that Biscayne Bay's deepest available channel, north of government cut, is the dredged shipping channel that runs directly beneath the Venetian Causeway, one of the 3 bridges connecting the mainland to Miami Beach, currently backed up with morning commuter traffic that has not yet been cleared. The animal is now moving at an estimated 15 to 20 miles per hour, well within its cruising range, directly toward a bridge with cars on it, in water that, beneath the bridge's main span, is dredged to nearly 30 feet to allow boat traffic through. Dr. Vasquez, now in a car race Miami International Airport to the command post, gets the update by phone and says the thing that becomes the day's first genuinely alarming realization. The deepest water in that entire bay system runs under 3 bridges full of people. We need those bridges cleared, now. Clearing the Venetian, MacArthur, and Rickenbacker causeways of vehicle traffic in under 20 minutes, during a Wednesday morning commute, is a logistical operation that Miami-Dade's Traffic Management Center has never attempted and never planned for. The reasoning, when FDOT's Traffic Operations Director hears it for the first time, there's a 70-ton shark that might pass underneath, produces, in his own words to a colleague afterward, the single strangest sentence of my 19-year career, and I worked through 3 hurricanes. But the logic holds. While the animal itself cannot threaten a car on a bridge 25 feet above the water, the causeways are drawbridges. The Venetian Causeway specifically has a bascule bridge section that can be raised, and if the Megalodon's presence beneath the channel requires an emergency bridge closure or, in the worst case, triggers any kind of marine traffic collision involving the animal directly beneath a span carrying live traffic, the structural and safety implications are something nobody wants to discover in real time. By 9:38 a.m., All three causeways are closed to vehicle traffic, redirecting Miami's entire east-west commute onto a road network that, as one radio traffic reporter puts it with the weary humor that has become this city's trademark response to all of this. Folks, I never thought I'd say this, but please add an extra 45 minutes to your commute due to a shark. At 10 a.m., the crisis takes the turn that Dr. Vasquez, now at the command post, having arrived 12 minutes earlier, has been waiting for and dreading. The Megalodon, following the dredged channel beneath the Venetian causeway, reaches the point where the channel narrows and shallows as it opens into the main body of Biscayne Bay. Water that drops from nearly 30 feet under the bridge to under 10 feet within a few hundred yards. The animal's sonar tracked movement displayed on the command post's main screen as a slow-moving blip that the entire room has been watching in. Silence for 2 hours does something nobody wants to see. It slows down, dramatically, from a cruising 15-18 miles per hour to barely 2-3 miles per hour. Dr. Vasquez, watching the track, says quietly, "It's in trouble." The room asks, "What kind of trouble?" She explains. A shark of this size, moving into water this shallow, loses the ability to use its full swimming motion. Its tail can't complete its normal arc without hitting the bottom, and its body, built for the sustained cruising of open ocean, is now expending enormous energy just to stay oriented. It's not stuck, not yet. But it's the marine equivalent, she says, of the T-Rex 3 weeks ago walking into an environment that overwhelmed every sense it had. Except this time, the environment isn't overwhelming its senses. It's overwhelming its body. The conversation that follows at the Miami command post is the most ethically loaded conversation of either crisis so far, and it happens in front of a room of officials who, 3 weeks ago, would have said the idea of debating the welfare of a megalodon was the most absurd sentence they could imagine. Now it's the only sentence that matters. If the animal continues into the shallows and becomes stranded, unable to generate enough swimming motion to return to the deep channel, it will die slowly over what marine biologists estimate could be many hours, in full view of a waterfront lined with hotels, restaurants, and, by 10:30 a.m., an estimated 250,000 people watching live coverage from helicopters circling overhead. The alternative, guiding it back toward open ocean before it strands itself, requires the exact opposite of New York's strategy 3 weeks ago. In Central Park, the goal was to make the city boring enough that the T-Rex lost interest. In Biscayne Bay, the goal has to be to make the deep channel back to the ocean the only interesting thing left, before the shallows do something to this animal that nothing in 3.6 million years of extinction prepared anyone to watch happen live. What happens over the next 2 hours is, in Dr. Vasquez's later description, the marine version of what New York did, except we're running out of time in a way they never were. The team's tool set is limited and strange. Boats, specifically positioned and operated at engine speeds, calibrated to produce a wall of low-frequency noise and propeller wash behind the animal, between it and the shallows, without getting close enough to cause a direct collision. It's the nautical equivalent of the generators used to herd the T-Rex, except executed by a hastily assembled flotilla of Coast Guard cutters, a Miami-Dade Police Marine unit, and, in a detail that becomes one of the most replayed images of the day, 4 of Danny Reyes's fellow charter captains, the same community that produced the first 911 call, volunteering their boats and running them in a loose line astern of the animal, close enough to be heard, far enough to be safe for 2 hours in the same water where they normally fish. By 12:40 p.m., the strategy is working, barely. The Megalodon's track on the command post screen begins, slowly, to curve back toward the deeper channel, its speed increasing from 2-3 miles per hour back toward 8-10 as it finds water it can move through properly again. At 1:08 p.m., the animal crosses back beneath the Venetian causeway, back into Government Cut, and, in the moment that the entire command post, according to multiple accounts, breaks into spontaneous applause, continues straight through the channel and out into open water, into the Atlantic, gone. The Megalodon's exit from Government Cut at 1:15 p.m. is tracked by sonar for another 40 minutes as it moves east, into water that deepens rapidly beyond the continental shelf, water that, within an hour, the animal is moving through at a cruising 15-18 miles per hour, The speed and ease of movement that Dr. Vasquez and her team had been watching for all morning finally restored. The 3 cruise ships, idle in government cut since 8:30 a.m., are cleared to resume departure at 1:30 p.m., 5 hours behind schedule, to a passenger reaction that, based on the footage immediately uploaded from balcony cameras, ranges from relief to, in a significant number of cases, visible disappointment at having missed the moment by minutes. The 3 causeways reopened to traffic at 1:45 p.m., restoring Miami's afternoon commute to its normal level of dysfunction. By 2 p.m., 6 hours after Danny Reyes's first radio call, Biscayne Bay is, by every visible measure, back to normal, boats moving, bridges open, the only sign that anything happened at all being the news helicopter still, circling and the crowds still lining the waterfront, hoping, with the same complicated mixture of fear and fascination that defined New York 3 weeks earlier, for one more look. What the events is Biscayne Bay revealed, and what makes this crisis a genuine companion piece to New York rather than a repeat of it, is that the danger this time wasn't the animal's power, it was its vulnerability. The Megalodon that entered Biscayne Bay was, for the first 2 hours, the most terrifying thing South Florida had ever seen. 70 tons of apex predator in water meant for jet skis and fishing, boats. By 10:30 a.m., it was the most fragile thing in the bay, an animal whose entire 15-million-year evolutionary success, its size, its power, the very things that made it the ocean's dominant predator for millions of years, were the precise things that turned a wrong turn into a potential death sentence the moment the water got shallow. Rex in Central Park was dangerous because it was too well adapted to a world that no longer existed. Megalodon in Biscayne Bay was dangerous because, for 2 hours, it wasn't adapted to anything at all, not its ancient ocean, long gone, and not the 10-foot-deep bay it had wandered into. Miami didn't survive a monster. Miami spent 2 hours trying to save one, using boats from the same charter fleet that called it in 3 hours earlier, because the alternative, 250,000 people watching the largest predator in the history of the ocean die slowly on live television, was something nobody in that command post, 10 minutes into the crisis, could bring themselves to choose. Subscribe, because somewhere right now, something else that hasn't existed for millions of years just woke up, and nobody's made the call yet.